right, well, Republicans and Democrats are gearing up for how this is all going to be communicated on tax reform. As you know, it's the law of the land right now, and you'll start seeing it in paychecks sometime in February. There's a big difference there, whether it's going to benefit everybody or whether some of the signs we're seeing out of corporate America sharing the loot that they're getting is a sign of things to come as well. That could make this a much bigger deal than even Democrats have outlined. Let's get the read on all this with National Tax Union Executive Vice President Brandon Arnold, Republican media strategist Adam Goodman, and former Democratic Ohio State Senator Capri Cafaro. Capri, ended with you. I wanted to get your take on Democrats who seem to be doing this. Not a one of them voted for this, but I'm wondering if they were surprised and worried now from a political position that so many companies out the gate are sharing this loot with their workers. It's not just going exclusively into stock and that sort of thing, which is the companies are perfectly free to, and right to do. But maybe because they do have so much money to play with, they are spreading the loot around, and that was something few predicted. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right, Neil. I think Democrats are a little bit nervous and have been trying to frame, the actions on behalf of, everybody from Boeing to Wells Fargo, increasing the minimum wage to $15 for their workers, and actually investing in job creation as well as putting money in people's pockets. I think they didn't see it coming, and so they're now framing it as, well, this is just a PR move. People are trying to look good. I personally think, hey, I don't care, Democrat or Republican, if more money is in people's pockets, that's fantastic. But I do think that, if the Republicans are able to capitalize on the fact that businesses, contrary to, the assumptions, are actually reinvesting the tax cuts into the hands of American workers, I think it's going to be more difficult for the Democrats to hold on to the momentum against the tax reform, where, right now Quinnipiac is saying about 55% of the American public are, have an unfavorable view of this. So, the Republicans do have to take back this message, and those corporate, actions, I think, will help.
Adam, one thing that the president indicated this morning was that maybe CEOs will do the selling and the pitching for them, and more examples like we've seen out of the big media companies and others like Wells Fargo. That might be all the selling you'll need. What do you think?
I think what we're going to see, first of all, Neil, this is tax cuts and tax reform is a signature Republican issue, and what we now are seeing is President Trump and Republicans starting to get back on their game. It took them a while, but they're starting to get back on their game in terms of delivering on the message of investing for and in America. And if corporations follow suit and take this as a cue, I think it becomes powerful politically next, because I believe that what we're going to see, Neil, is this is a tee-up to what Donald Trump talked about this morning, which is an infrastructure plan. Now you've got more dollars in more workers' paychecks, and you're going to potentially have a massive infrastructure program talking about more jobs for more Americans.
Brandon, how do you think that argument's going to go?
Well, I think the focus ought to be on the tax relief and the economic benefits that come from this tax bill that was just signed. We'll see what happens with the infrastructure bill. It's far too early to speculate about that. But as you mentioned earlier, come February, people are going to see a real difference in their paychecks. And then we're going to see the corporate activity, not just about bonuses and things like that, which are fantastic, but about real investment in the economy that's going to create sustainable jobs and economic growth. That's when the popularity of this bill is really going to take off.
You know what's interesting, guys, and despite the booming economy, despite the booming stock market, that the president's own personal poll numbers are so weak. Now, I know many in the White House view this maybe because this is the view of the boss as fake news and fake numbers, and they don't trust them. And actually, he's technically, as Conal McShane was pointing out earlier on this show, higher than he was on Election Day. And I understand all of that. But are you surprised, Capri, that the president, whatever your political persuasion, has not benefited more from an environment that would presumably be wind at his back?
Well, guess what? Nothing about the 2016 election was, politics as usual, and nothing about the Trump administration is government as usual. So the fact that, typically the president or the occupant of the White House does get some credit for, a strengthened economy, the fact that there is that disconnect there between public opinion of, the president from the actual successes of the economy, I think, in some ways is not a surprise. Number one, because everything has been a surprise about this White House, but I think also because, the American public is separating out some of the economic successes from, and getting sort of in the weeds with some of the more bombastic aspects of, President Trump and his tweets.
I think you hit on something. I think it's a personal likability issue, Adam. A lot of Americans just don't like the president personally. I'm not saying that, to cast negative aspersions. I'm just saying otherwise you'd be benefiting more. It's still other presidents who were deemed personally, let's say, not super likable, I'll leave it at that, have come back to do very, very well. Richard Nixon getting reelected in a landslide before the oil crisis, and of course Watergate, memorable instances there. But you don't have to be angelic to be necessarily loved by the American people. If you have a lot of good things going your way, and Adam, I'll leave your sense of this, maybe as a media expert as well, if everyone is feeling better about their own fortunes, it doesn't matter how they feel personally about the guy leading those fortunes, does it?
No question. And here's what a slogan. Here's the tagline to that commercial. From Donald Trump, from President Trump. You may not always like what I say, but you're going to like what I do. And I think he's finally, a year in, starting to do some big things. And I think that's what people are going to remember more than anything else.
That's well said. I'm going to write that down. Brandon, the other flip side of that is then you might not always like what I tweet. If you had to advise him in the new year, cool it on the tweets, at least the nasty ones to those who bug you, especially in your own party. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the focus should be on the track record of the president. I think the focus should be on things like this tax bill just signed into law. This is a huge achievement, and I think he needs to show that off to the American public, probably more so than some of the extracurricular tweets that he's been known for.
That's a sad comment. You're very sad. I'm kidding. Guys, thank you all very, very much. We shall see. 10 minutes after the hour.